It's that time again for the assault on your ears we call Lower Dorks, a Star Trek Lower Decks podcast. I'm Aaron, and with me is Stavros. Tonight on our screens is episode 7 of season 2, Where Pleasant Fountains Lie. And what's in our cups tonight, Stavros?
Well, we have selected Hot Damn Cinnamon Schnapps. The brand is De Kuyper. It's actually a pretty thick schnapps, I must say. I don't usually drink this kind of drink, but I'm having it over ice right now, and it's pretty tasty, although it does kind of vaguely remind me of chewing gum flavors. If you've ever had cinnamon chewing gum, I don't often have cinnamon drinks.
It is a cinnamon liqueur. It has quite the bite. As you mentioned, though, it is quite thick. I do enjoy a small glass by itself. However, it makes a fantastic mixer with pretty much anything citrus flavored.
Interesting. I may have to try it with something else too. I'm kind of just having a fun time sipping it, but I may have to mix it after we're done recording.
Indeed. Now that we know what's in our cup, what is on our screens here, Stavros?
Yes, well, let's talk about this episode where pleasant fountains lie. So, when the Cerritos is the, of course, only ship in the quadrant, available to respond to the Hysperian Queen's ship, Billups, the chief engineer, must deal with his mother's latest attempts to make him a king by tricking him into having sex. Meanwhile, Mariner and Boimler are pulled off course delivering an evil computer to the Daystrom Institute.
Oh my god, Billups is the chief engineer? I had no idea. Thank you for filling in our listeners at home. I mean...
You know, they never say his name, but I know he's your bro.
2 seasons in, no idea. I'm sure our listeners were just as clueless.
Well, you know what? Now they know.
But yeah, fantastic. We're finally getting a Billups episode, and once again,
I know,
the dynamic duo of Billups and Rutherford are teaming up.
Are you so excited?
Oh yeah, and I like the fact that Tendy's on board for it too.
That's right, Tendy sent him along. I was confused a little bit by that, but you know what? You need a bromance. I have to give it to you a little bit.
True friend, Tendy.
I don't know about that. She'll exit the friend zone eventually. I believe in it. It's going to happen.
No such thing as the friend zone, my friend.
Well, you know, I wanted to first cover the episode title. For those of you who don't know at home, Where Pleasant Fountains Lie is actually a Shakespeare reference. Shakespeare has a poem called Venus and Adonis, and in that is where that line can be found, actually.
A quite lewd reference, no less.
Yes, yes, indeed. It certainly fits the episode. But you know what? I fell into a deep dive doing research for this episode. So you know what? We're just going to talk about what this poem is about. So in case you didn't know, Venus is the goddess of love in Greek mythology, and Adonis was a very attractive mortal. She comes to visit him. She sees him, and he's like, wow, that Adonis is super hot. And she comes down to visit him. But you know what? Adonis is just super into hunting. She's like, please stay. And he's like, no, you're just lusty for me. You don't actually love me. Funny story, he actually tries to leave on his horse, but then his horse falls in love with another horse.
So is what you're saying is that Adonis is attempt to be seduced by all the wondrous things in the world. But he only cares for hunting. Much like a certain chief engineer only cares for circuits and silicon.
Yeah, that's right. But yes, in the poem, Adonis finally leaves to go hunting, but the wild boar he's hunting gores him and he bleeds to death. Venus finds him and he's bleeding to death. Venus gets very sad and says that, you know what? From now on, love will be accompanied by the possibility of grief and sadness. And she goes back.
Well, I mean...
So yes, that's the whole story.
It seems like it already was. I mean, that kind of is what happened in the story.
Yes. I see how you put that together. Yes,
yeah.
That was the moral of the story.
I feel like Venus is kind of, late to the party here and taking claim for something she didn't invent.
Yes. But anyway, so the line specifically, the full line is... So at this point in the story, Venus has gotten Adonis to kiss her, but he's not really interested in anything else. And she goes, graze on my lips, and if those hills be dry, stray lower where the pleasant fountains lie. And you know what? If you're thirsty, I guess that's where you go when you're thirsty.
Well, there's multiple different kinds of thirsty, my friend. We all get a little thirsty sometimes, if you know what I mean.
Yes. So that's the full reference. I thought that was fun, and I actually didn't think of the Adonis hunter and then Billups engineer thing. It's pretty good, although no one dies.
Yeah, and the real question is, he died, Adonis did, and who mourns for Adonis? They should do an episode about that.
I know. Actually, funny story. I looked up that. I was like, is there, that Toss episode? Is that also for Adonis? But the way that's spelled in the original series episode, the way that actually means like gods, like a general term.
Yep.
So it's actually separate from Adonis in this poem we're talking about.
Indeed.
Pretty interesting if you go down this Shakespeare mythology rabbit hole like I did. But you know what? We should talk about Billups because he's your boy. We learned his first name.
Everybody is my boy, apparently. But yes, Andorethio. They can't just, he's Andy, but it's short for Andorethio. Can't just have a normal name like Andrew or Anderson or...
Nope. It's like Rutherford, who has Samanthan as his first name.
Yeah, don't know what they're doing with this. It's kind of nice, though, and a little bit refreshing to have names evolve over time. I'm willing to bet, though, if I went digging, there would probably be some sort of reference that Andorethio is actually a real-world name. Star Trek tends to do that. It digs into real historical names to name their aliens. So it's, a name you're not going to encounter most likely in your daily life. It sounds unusual. For instance, I actually had a great uncle named Oda.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's a name, though. From what I understand, it was weird that there was a dude named Odo. I guess it's a female name. I don't know.
Oh. Well, interesting. But I'm just glad we got to learn a little bit more about Billups. Paul Scheer did a great job. He voices Billups anyway, but he definitely gets his moment in the sun in this episode. I think my favorite line from him in this episode was, "Will it hurt?" So
You're a little too old to be asking that question, Billups.
So why is it so funny? Lower Decks is not afraid to go into some sex jokes, as we found out.
Oh no, this whole episode is full of them. Yeah. The title itself is a sexual innuendo.
Yeah.
But the way they use the sex jokes in this one is just fantastic. Because they're used as a metaphor for his coming into his, kingship, his royalty. And I don't know why, but that just works perfectly as because it's both literal and figurative. And God.
Yes.
Fantastically crafted.
Yes. And then Rutherford, of course, pops in and says, "Did his kingdom come?" Which I was just like, it's like on the verge of being too much, but no, it's pretty good. Oh
yeah, so it's definitely not like the Mugato scene where it's a little too explicit and a little too gaudy, Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna point that out actually. I thought that Mugato scene where he grabs his horn was like a little too much for me personally, but perfectly pulled off in this episode. I think sex jokes in Star Trek somehow can be funny, even when they're the premise of the whole episode.
Well, and the whole thing is the sex jokes are using sexual innuendo to glaze over what he's really afraid of.
And that would be?
Well, becoming king. He doesn't want to be royalty.
Okay, I thought you were going to say performing.
Oh, no, not at all. Billups can...
Fair enough.
Billups can perform, baby.
He can make that engine perform. He can align those coils, man.
Yeah, you'll get that engine running smooth and steady all night long. Womp, 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 womp,
yes. I can see you're really excited about this. But let's talk about his people. They're Hysperians. I think it's a new race or planet or people, as far as I can tell, just for Lower Decks. The ship itself, super fancy and like gold-plated. It was kind of like, it was almost as gaudy as the Pack of the Planet, but not as much. It's just kind of flowery and metallic and stuff. It's kind of interesting. There's no transporting to that ship. They only want to use that little interconnected ramp or the little walkway between the two ships instead of transporters. Yeah. Why do you suppose that is? They wanted to show off the ship more?
I don't think it matters. What's even more interesting, you mentioned like just how stylized the ship is. The exterior is just, it's a fabulous design. I always love it in Star Trek when they take the Roddenberry rules of, warp nacelles and buzzard collectors or Bussard collectors, and they turn them into something unique and fantastic looking.
Right.
The mainline Federation ships itself, the Enterprises, Voyager, a lot of the B ships, they all create this like beautiful concept of, technology as magic. It's not the blocky ships of the Expanse. Right. It's these flowing organic shapes that roll into one another, but are very clearly technological. And they do the same thing with this particular ship. Not just with the exterior, where it has these great flowing lines, but also with the interior. I don't know if you noticed, there is very alien-looking technology, but it's not like Alien in the strange outer creatures created this, but Alien in the it's technology that harkens back to a past that, viewed the future differently. But even more than that, though, there are scenes where you see in, like, hallways, the technology is the same as what, the Federation is using. It's not completely alien technology. Leads to one of the great jokes, the elf relays.
Yes.
Don't call it that.
Yeah, pretty amazing. It sounds like you said, it's like this. It's a planet that is made up of like Ren Fair. They even say it's like Ren Fair people that settled on a planet that has dragons on it, and they just wanted to have fancy technology that they just call medieval fantasy stuff, and that's just their whole shtick.
Yeah, and you know what? That is, it's not a common trope in sci-fi, but it is a trope in sci-fi of once we get out into space. And there's limiting factors on, the actual needs that we have, food, shelter, clothing, that stuff. We'll start to just form packs of people with common interests and live in completely different and bizarre communities.
Yeah.
You even see this. Yeah, you even see this in that TNG episode, Up the Long Ladder.
Yes.
Where the people are living as if it were, the 1800s.
Yeah. Is it the Irish people?
Yes. The low tech and the high tech people who came from like the same colony ship or something. Mm-hmm. But you also see it with the people who live on the cloaked planet. I think you see it a little bit throughout all the series where people have just divergent societies because they separated off from their baseline society to live however they want to live.
I was thinking, like, why is this a thing? And it's got to be a connection with the episode title. Like, it's a Shakespeare reference. A lot of the episode is drawn along the lines of the poem. It's got to be, the Ren and Fair people is, because of the Shakespeare reference. That's just got to be it. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it all works together. The Shakespearean reference, the old timiness of. The big thing people always associate, Renaissance festivals with, like, their medievalness of them, but they're the Renaissance, the same time that we were evolving into modern culture. Shakespeare himself wrote a lot about this era, and I'm not sure he was actually a Renaissance poet per se. My history isn't that great, but the title itself is just a reference, obviously, to Billups' plight.
Right.
But then, they weave that into the Ren Fair planet and her people.
And there is one shot where Tendi is researching Rutherford's disappearance, and you get a close-up of the schematic of the Hysperian ship. It looks like a MSD, the Master Systems display you would see on a Federation ship.
Like I said, Federation technology.
Exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right. But I did a little freeze frame investigations, and I don't know if you spotted this, but apparently the ship is literally carrying horses, and there is a large chamber with a dragon on it on their ship somewhere.
Not just horses.
Which is pretty amazing.
But like a whole deck of horses.
Yeah. It is pretty good.
Dragon gets its own little room. A lot of attention to detail there. Kudos to the producers, whoever made that happen.
Yes. But you know what? That leads me to a very mini DAMMIT Mike segment. DAMMIT Mike McMahon. You're telling us that these people are from a planet with dragons, and the schematic shows dragons on the ship, but do we see any dragons in this episode? No! Would it have killed you just to show us a dragon for, like, just a split second? Would it have? You could show us the damn dragon.
Usually you're just going on about some nonsense during these DAMMIT Mike segments, but I'm on your side on this one. I think we need to see more of Hysperian. I think we need to see the dragons.
Yes.
We need to see their whole culture and society. Hopefully this becomes like a recurring Luoxana Troy episode, and she'll come back in the next season.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, there's endless opportunities to try and get Billups to bang someone.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, the royal guards try and seduce him into becoming king, which of course, is a thing. But I mean, those guys have a very specific skill set.
Yeah. It's a little dark. Trained from birth to skip foreplay. Super,
what does that mean?
Super subtle implied darkness right there. Oh, man.
I'm not sure if we need to want to dive into that because it just gets a little dark.
Yeah. Oh, you know, let's turn on the time machine, roll back a few minutes, and talk about something. Speaking of banging and mothers,
okay,
I noticed it's interesting. So Billups' voice actor is Paul Scheer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the woman that played his mother is one Diane Raphael.
Okay.
Who apparently is married to Paul Scheer. I'm not sure the message they're trying to send.
Oh, no.
But I suspect Heinlein would approve.
That is amazing. I mean, it's cool that Paul got his partner to come in, but is this really the relationship they wanted? But also, it's hilarious. I think we'll be just fine with if she makes a return appearance. But I think we need to do is switch on over to the B plot. I think it's more of the B plot, and that is Mariner and Boimler taking Agimus, the Jeffrey Combs flavored evil computer, to the Daystrom Institute. How cool is that to get Jeffrey Combs back on a Star Trek show?
Oh yeah, it's great. He really shows why he is one of the best Star Trek actors. Just so much presence, and even when he's hamming it up, he just creates this great performance.
He doesn't even need a face. His character doesn't even need a face.
And I gotta give credit to the costume and makeup people. Once again, I didn't even realize that was Jeffrey Combs until I heard his voice.
Yes, I mean, of course we know Jeffrey Combs has done a multitude of characters, and almost all of them, I think, are wearing makeup, like heavy makeup of some kind. Yes. It was great. He makes it a hilarious and kind of menacing enemy. Luckily, Boimler is there to thwart his plans. So, despite the situation that they get in,
another evil robot to contend with for our hero.
Kind of funny, like a couple things involving Agimus. I have a 1-year-old kid, and when Boimler constructed a little baby carrier to put Agimus in, I thought that was pretty hilarious. See him walk through the desert with that. I thought that was pretty good.
Wait, you have a 1-year-old kid, Stavros? I thought we talked about this. Those kids at the park. They're not adoptions. You can't just pick one up.
I don't take those
and
home.
Walk away with them. Jeez, man. Thought we talked about this.
I know. But no, seeing that computer in the carrier was pretty hilarious. And one thing I wanted to point out, I want to get your opinion on this too, is when Agimus thinks he's won and is plugged into the computer or the ship that Boimler and Mariner are purportedly going to fly out of there. We get the little vision of him, leading this planet or this system, and with little death drones flying in. I thought that the silhouette of those drones looked similar to the silhouette of the drone in the TNG episode Arsenal of Freedom, where that hologram tries to sell the Enterprise crew some death drones. Does it look the same way?
I think you're right. It's much more. It's the same basic shape concept, just much blockier.
It's similar enough to kind of be a little reminiscent. I feel like the artist probably looked at that TNG episode maybe for some inspiration.
Well, and I also think though that design, the little ball with the larger ball on top, or in this case the little cube with the larger cube, I think that's a pretty common sci-fi design aesthetic.
Okay, makes sense. But it was cool to see. It kind of gave me a little I think I know what those are.
Indeed.
But yeah, the final scene when the Agimus gets put into the Daystrom Institute wall of self-aware megalomaniacal computers. Pretty good ending to the episode as well. I had to appreciate that. That was some kudos to the writers there. I'm a little concerned if anything bad ever happens at the Daystrom Institute, security fails in some way. I'm a little worried about that, especially when you put them all in one place. I feel like the whole network.
The one thing I loved about it is they stick him in the box, right, or in his cubby. And then they do the pan back. And before that, you can already tell that there's other robots here. And it's just him talking. And at first you're like, oh, this is going to be like an Indiana Jones scene, right? Where they pull out and reveal the giant facility. And I'm like, it's been done. And then the machines start talking to each other. Oh,
so good.
Such great comedy there as they all argue over who's going to rule.
And like I said, if they all escape, they'll all network together and may the strongest computer personality win. I hope it's Jeffrey Combs. But you know, in this B-plot, what I wanted to talk about a lot is how Mariner and Boimler interact on a character level. So, as you know from watching the episode, Mariner actually foils Boimler's assignment, like a combat assignment, basically, to go clean up some centipedes or something. Yeah. She totally pulls him off this assignment by just talking to Ransom. And we kind of get a lot of Mariner thinking she is still kind of Boimler's babysitter here. And that's despite everything that we've done this season so far. Of course, Boimler kind of resists and pulls a fast one on her at the end. But I'm not sure I really like how Mariner is dealing with him. Like, they're the same rank. Should she be doing this? I'm not a big fan.
Well, it's characterization, right?
Sure.
You just don't know her true motives. Did she do it because she's afraid that he'll gain prestige from the mission and eventually abandon her? Did she do it because she still views him as a wet behind the ears puppy who needs her protection? Did she do it because she's insufferable? Insufferable! But the thing I do want to mention, though, is that this is fantastic because she basically did the exact same thing she called Tendi out for doing in the last episode.
Yeah. Completely. But, it all ends okay. I mean, the one thing, though, like Boimler's gambit with Agimus, thank God it worked out because, I wasn't really sure where they were going with this. And especially when he stuns Mariner, I don't think Mariner would ever shoot Boimler on purpose.
She's already stabbed him. I mean, what's the diff?
Yeah, that's true. Although she was hammered when that happened.
It's no excuse, man. Trust me. I have a couple of court findings that illustrate that perfectly.
Oh, dear. I won't ask anymore.
Speaking of which, we may need to skip next week. I've got some community service to take care of.
Awkward. Yeah, maybe a good idea. But, Boimler actually does show development here. I mean, he's kind of whiny and show-offy about his time on the Titan, but I feel like he's getting more competent. Like, gone are the days of Boimler being completely incompetent on the in that first season episode when they're tracking the Klingon general through the planet districts. I mean, he seems more, he finds the food, he manipulates Agimus into doing what they want, so I'm glad to see some development there.
Yeah, he's growing increasingly, genre savvy, and
yes,
increasingly confident. So,
yes.
The question is, though, where does this go? You can only go so far before you run into a Scully situation where, hey, you've met aliens 50 times. Why don't you believe?
Yeah, and I think this is all going to come to a head at some point with his transporter duplicate. I hope we see that happen during this season. I really want to get that resolved. But yeah, cool to see character development there. Let's see, what else? And there's a bunch of little things I wanted to bring up. The push-up glasses on the bridge of my nose, nerd. There's a scene at the beginning of the episode where Boimler's cleaning his phaser rifle, and Mariner's like, "Oh, what's the difference between a phaser rifle and a regular phaser?" And he's like, "Oh, it takes two hands." But you know what? We get
it's
descriptions of other shows
been explained.
Yeah. There's a DS9 episode where Kira dissects features of the Federation phaser rifle, and it apparently has fancy tech stuff like multiple target acquisition and gyro stabilization.
Yes.
So there are some differences there, Mariner.
Yeah.
Just pointing that out.
Well, it's like I always say, why would you want a phaser cannon when a phaser rifle is enough to destroy a building? The real question is,
that's true.
Why would I want to destroy a building when I can destroy a whole city?
How many shots on setting 16 can a phaser really do before it's out of juice?
7.
Let's see, what else? There's a couple other fun little things. One thing I want to ask you if you noticed. So there's the shot when Tendi finds out that Rutherford is probably dead and she's in sickbay. And she turns and looks out a window towards the Hysperian ship. Has there always been a window in sickbay, or is this just a thing that they just threw in to accommodate the plot?
I don't think we've ever seen all of sickbay in one shot. And for all we know, this is a different sickbay. Why would a ship not have multiple medical facilities?
It could be. It's something I'm going to have to pay attention to now, just like sensors. I'm always going to be looking at the Sickbay set to see if there's...
Don't look too closely, man. It's just going to drive you mad.
One other cool thing I found when Captain Freeman is reviewing the pad with Rutherford's name on it for the deceased, and the Queen's name is on there as well. If you freeze frame, because of course I did, the last name on the list is L.Playa, Playa, and
it's Loot Player, isn't it? Oh my god!
Yes,
that's amazing.
It's the Loot Player he's jamming the comms in the Hysperian ship by playing his lute. And you see him in the very next scene when Rutherford tries to call Billups.
Oh, man.
That was amazing.
Did not even pick up on that. That is awesome.
It is certainly a cool little detail.
Yes, I do want to point out, though, that, like, as she's, like, looking at the screen, she taps the photos to mark them as dead. Man... That's a cold design feature.
It's so dark. It's like a little X over Rutherford's face.
You feel like there wouldn't be like just a list of people you pull up and click on them to show that they're dead. I feel like there would be more to it.
Well, you know what? This isn't the first time that Rutherford has had a brush with death. So
I do want to point out, though, that Rutherford nearly dies. And there's a brief moment where they're telling Tendi, right? And they're kind of serious about it. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Your friend has died. And you're like, oh, wow, they're being all, courteous and respectful. And then at the end, turns out he's not dead. And everybody's all like, oh, good for Tendi. And it's all like, that's a pretty emotionally traumatic situation to be in. You feel like maybe you should be a bit more respectful?
No.
Yeah, I think Rutherford needs to be sent to sensitivity training.
He's going to learn. They're all just ensigns. They need to pick up on some of these social skills. So.
From what I've seen of Star Trek, nobody ever does.
Hey, at least LaForge isn't on the show. He was the worst at picking up social cues. One final thing I wanted to mention. So food, once again, becomes a topic of discussion for the characters in this show. Earlier in the season, it was pears. And then on the planet where Mariner and Boimler crash, it's this like black licorice theme. And I feel like the artists have really got some food pet peeves, man. Like, there's no reason for the replicator to continuously just make licorice, and the plant life to have something that just tastes like licorice. I feel like the writer just like the lead writer, whoever that is, I'm sure we can look at the credits and find out. Just like, what sucks is pears and licorice, man. We're gonna F those foods up on this show this season.
Nobody likes black licorice. I don't understand how it's a thing. I feel like black licorice, its primary market is people who have not had black licorice in a long enough time that they've forgotten how bad it is.
Completely possible.
But yeah, it's not just that, it's the replicator thing too, There's constant, banana hot, there's the, million combo mix, there's Boimler being rejected by the replicator. I don't know, they seem to have a bit of a fixation.
Is that like a type of humor? Maybe is like food humor. It's got to be.
Got to be.
Like with the origins in cream pie, throwing. Except in this show, it's replicators, and maybe that's it.
Yeah.
The writers just really enjoy that. But speaking of food, what shows up at the end of the episode is cake.
Yeah, what's the deal with that? Why are they all just eating cake in the...
It's got to be because Billups is back. They're like welcoming him back with cake because they thought he was.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, God, this just got real dark. What if they got the cake before Phillips came back? And they're celebrating that he's gone.
Ah. All it takes is they just have to scrub out one word on the cake and it's probably fine.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, that's...
It's something to think about.
No, it's something to forget about. I don't want to think about this.
Yeah, lots of fun little details to either remember fondly or to forget about entirely. So, do you have anything else you want to cover, or are we out of things to talk about?
Yeah, no, I think we've talked about. I mean, we hit on the cake. That doesn't make any sense. We hit on the weird Billups and his mother relationship.
Yes.
Tendi being traumatized, and... Yeah, I'm not even going to mention the last thing we hit on. I think we've talked about everything I was interested in this episode, except Jeffrey Combs. But we would have to do a whole episode to talk about his amazing performance.
I think so. Maybe after season 2.
Maybe. If that's the case, then I guess it's time we shut this thing down and put our cups up for the week. But of course,
Indeed.
We'll be back next week for our episode 8 review. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at Lower Dorks, or if you're so inclined, you can seek out a distant Ren Fest and find 2 gentlemen cosplaying sci-fi cosplayers cosplaying Renaissance Festival goers.
It's us, right?